Hello everyone, Mariko Realtor with Bridgewell Real Estate Group, and welcome to the Bridgewell Group YouTube channel where I talk about all things real estate, specifically in my area, which is the Greater Vancouver area of British Columbia, Canada, but I also cover matters that are provincial and federal, so make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. And today's video is going to be about pre-sale versus resale. So I'm gonna go into the key differences between pre-sale versus resale. I'm gonna have it on a whiteboard for you. I'm gonna separate it out. I'm gonna talk about each of the key points. So it'll definitely be a great starting point for you to decide which one is more appropriate for you and also some of the pros and cons of the two. So let's just get into it. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of pre-sale versus resale, I think it's first important to define the differences between the two. So what is a pre-sale home? A pre-sale home is something that is typically not yet built. So you are going to be buying it from a developer or a builder, for example. The date of it being built is often quite a long time out. So, some high rises, it can take 5 to 8 years. Low rise buildings, maybe 2 or 3. Townhouses, detached homes, there's different schedules, but essentially you're purchasing a contract with the agreement that a home is going to be built at a particular point in time that is an estimated completion date range. Whereas with a resale home, you are buying something tangible. It's often something that's already been lived in. You're buying it from the owner / seller. Most of the times they're not an owner builder, they're not a developer. So you're not buying a contract in that situation. You're buying an actual unit or home that you can physically see and is already built. And there are a lot of nuances and differences between the two, which I'm definitely going to get into, but I do want to start by just saying that it is really important that you have a team around you that is familiar with the type of product that you're looking to purchase. So if you're looking to purchase a pre-sale property and that's all you're doing, then definitely make sure you have a realtor and a mortgage broker that is familiar with pre-sale, ideally that specializes in pre-sale and can help you with all of the ins and outs of that particular type of product, as it is drastically different than resale. And so having the right team around you is going to be one of the most important starting points when you are determining whether you want to go in the direction of a pre-sale versus a resale property, as not all realtors and mortgage brokers deal with both types of products. So starting off with some of the key differences between pre-sale and versus resale, definitely one of the most notable is going to be taxes. So when you are dealing with pre-sales, you are dealing with GST. So this is going to be 5% that you pay based on the purchase price, fair market value for a pre-sale home. GST does not apply to resale homes. No GST. So that's a big tax difference because 5% is obviously 5%. The other difference in terms of the taxes is the property transfer tax exemptions. So for pre-sale homes, you get something called the newly built home exemption, and that's going to be for properties up to $1.1 million for the full exemption, assuming that you and the property both qualify. Whereas for resale homes, the only property transfer tax exemption you're going to see is the first-time homebuyer property transfer tax exemption, and that's for properties up to $835,000 for the full exemption, but the amount that you're saving on taxes is only based on the first $500K. So I've done a video on both the newly built home exemption and the property transfer tax exemption, how to calculate it, how to calculate property transfer tax in general, so definitely make sure to check those out if you haven't already. So those are the big differences in terms of taxes. So just PTT exemption, kind of first-time home buyer. Moving on to subject removal and rescission. So just like very cliff notes, subject removal, rescission periods are basically the time for a buyer to be able to do due diligence on the property. In a pre-sale situation, you have a mandated 7-day rescission period. Nobody can take this away from you. Once you have an accepted offer, you have 7 days to, get your ducks in a line, maybe make sure you're checking in with a mortgage broker, reviewing the disclosure statements, whatever you need to do within those 7 days to figure out whether or not you want to move forward with committing to the property officially and making it firm, you have that for pre-sales. Now for resales, it's a very, very different story. We have something called a subject removal period. The subject removal period can be negotiated. It can be 1 day, there could be no subjects, it could be 7 days, it could be weeks. It really depends on what the buyer and the seller agree to. We also have something called subject free. Again, there is a rescission period with resale homes, the 3-day cooling off period for subject free homes, but it's 3 days. It works in a very different manner. So again, the amount of time that you have to do your due diligence is more negotiable with resale. It's a little bit more competitive in a lot of situations with resale compared to the pre-sale always being very straightforward. You have that 7-day rescission period. So in resale, we have a 3-day rescission, also known as the cooling off period. Or you have a subject removal period that is negotiable. So next, when we're dealing with pre-sale and resale, we really have to consider dates. And so starting with pre-sale, we are working off something that typically has not been built yet, right? So you're buying a contract in most situations and the developer still needs to build this home for you. And so obviously there are things that can change, you know, whether it be like construction delays, labor shortages, you know, supply delays, maybe the project gets canceled. Like there's a lot of things that can happen when it comes to these newly built properties. So just know that the dates are always an estimate. And most of the time in the contract, actually all of the time, I've never seen one that doesn't have it, they will have an estimated date or an estimated date range. And they will have a lot of details around how those dates can change, how notice can be given for those dates to change, you know, how they can cancel the project, when they can cancel the project. So make sure that you are really reading through that pre-sale contract when you're purchasing that property. And most importantly, that you are aware of the dates and how the dates can change. And even like this can change as close to like 2 weeks from when you think you're going to get the property. So it can be very last minute. And I think that this is probably one of the harder parts with pre-sales, is just that these dates are always moving and they're not as concrete. So alternatively, when we're dealing with resale properties, this is a tangible property, right? It's already been built. Typically there's someone that's living in there. It might be vacant, but again, it's built, right? So we might see completion dates from when you get the accepted offer, subjects are removed, deposits handed in. You might see completion dates as short as 2 weeks. On average, it's really normal to see like 2 to 3 months. You might see 4 months, like the longest I've seen is 9 months. But the point here is that it's negotiable and it just depends on what the seller and the buyer agree to, and that date is set in stone, it's concrete. And so there is a little bit more certainty with regards to dates when you are dealing with a resale property versus a pre-sale property. So next is the deposit, and when we are dealing with a pre-sale property, it's going to be the developer that sets that deposit. So there's lots of deposit ranges, very different deposit structures, and it's all project specific. It's not like it's standardized or always the same. But I would say it's very common to see a 10 to 20% deposit schedule. And that's the big point here. It's a schedule. So a lot of the times there's like an initial deposit when you sign the contract to hold it. Then once it goes firm, so after that 7-day rescission period, there's going to be another deposit, say like 10% of the purchase price. Then maybe in 6 to 12 months, you're going to see another 5%. And then maybe in 12 to 18 months, you're going to see another 5%. So it's a schedule over a period of time. That's how pre-sales work. Now there are opportunities for incentives in terms of deposit changes. So we've seen like as low as 5%. You might just have like a one-time deposit. So it's just 10% one time and there's no schedule. So again, it's all subject to the developer. Where they're at in their financing could mean that they have different flexibility in terms of what deposit schedules they can offer. We've also seen as high as 25%, and sometimes they charge more deposits for foreign entities versus permanent residents or Canadian citizens, and there might even be different deposits for first-time home buyers. So just make sure that you're asking the realtor that you're working with for your pre-sale or the sales staff what the deposit schedule is so that you can be aware of how that works. Alternatively, we have resales, and resales, there's not like a set amount. There's no like absolute standard that's written in stone, but I would say a lot of sellers and listing agents are going to expect about 5%. So 5% is a common amount. I've seen people do lower, I've seen people do higher, but generally I would expect a 5% deposit for resale properties. So moving on to financing, and I think that this is a really important topic when it comes to pre-sale versus resale, because this is where we see a lot of people talk about risk when it comes to pre-sale properties. So again, going back to the date conversation, pre-sales, a lot of the times it's like quite a ways out, right? And so with financing, we don't necessarily know what our financial situation is going to be like a year or 2 years from now. We don't know concretely that we are going to have that job. Maybe you buy a car, maybe you have a baby, there's lots of changes that can happen within that period of time. There's also market changes, right? We've seen introductions like the stress test. We've seen foreign buyer bans. We've seen a lot of new policies come in. We've seen interest rates increase. There are a lot of changes that essentially affect you, your qualification, and your budget. So that's really where there is risk in pre-sales, is more with regards to the financing. So again, we have to make sure that beyond a reasonable doubt that we are able to complete on this property when the developer serves you that notice saying, hey, person, the property is going to be ready in 2 weeks. Here's your completion notice. Here's your possession day. Make sure that you are ready for title to transfer. So a lot of the time when you're dealing with a bank or a mortgage broker for your pre-approval, you're working off a 120-day rate hold, so 4 months long. So a lot of people with pre-sales will think like, okay, I can't get a financing approval when I get my accepted offer if my pre-sale's a year out. I have to wait until I'm 120 days out. And that's not true. You can wait. You don't necessarily have to get your financing locked in until you are closer to this completion date. You don't start paying your mortgage until the completion date, all of these things. But you definitely can talk to a mortgage broker and involve them earlier in the process. So when you're working with us at Bridgewell for pre-sale properties, we work with a lot of pre-sale specific or pre-sale knowledgeable mortgage brokers that can actually get really long rate holds. Like we've got 5-year rate holds for some of our clients that are dealing with pre-sale properties. So there are ways to mitigate this risk, maybe by looking at things like builders rates to protect yourself against like drastic increases in interest rates, or blanket appraisals to help with potential decreases in value. Again, like these are higher level topics, but there are ways that you can mitigate this risk if you are looking to purchase a pre-sale, because one of the benefits of pre-sale in terms of financing is like, if you're a student and you want to get into the market, but you just can't qualify right now because you don't have a job, but in 2 years, you're going to be an engineer making great money, or in tech, or a realtor, you're gonna make it big and you're gonna have all this money to be able to purchase this pre-sale, you can work off of hypothetical income and get that approval once you are closer to the completion date. So that is one benefit. If you're like, I'm not ready to start paying my mortgage now, but I wanna get into the market, I've got the deposits, I know that I'm gonna be making money, and I know I'm gonna qualify later by the time the completion date comes, we could look at a way to get you into the market without having to start those payments, without having to get that approval, as long as you are certain beyond a reasonable doubt. So there is obviously more risk with regards to this, but there's flexibility in terms of when you lock in your financing. Now, when we're dealing with a resale property, it's just so much more simple. Again, we're working off of usually 120-day rate holds from when you get that pre-approval to when you complete. We generally know what our life is within a 4-month span of time. We know what our job is like. We know what our financial status is like. It's just safer, right? So with your financing for the resale side of things, I'll just put safer, and you're just able to lock in sooner. You know what your dates are. You know what the current, I would say, market conditions are. You're aware of, again, like your job situation, all of those kind of things come with purchasing a resale property, just because we're working off of a much shorter time frame. You don't necessarily have to work with like a specific broker that offers a specific product in terms of pre-sales and long-term rate holds. You're generally going to be able to work with a variety of mortgage brokers or banks to find the right product that works for you at this particular point in time. Last but not least on this list today is warranty. So when you are dealing with a pre-sale, you are purchasing a brand new home. You're going to be the first one that is going to be in this home. And you are going to get something in BC that's called the 2-5-10 warranty. And so this is something that you see with all of the newly built homes, where you have a 2-year period where certain things are under warranty, a 5-year period where certain things are under warranty, and a 10-year period where certain things are under warranty as a part of BC housing. So that is definitely a pro of pre-sale. It's a new property, you're gonna be the first one living there, and there's warranties. You've got deficiency walkthroughs, so you're able to like nitpick these little things like, oh, the paint isn't good here. Like that's the time where you can nitpick some of the cosmetic stuff. But the 2-5-10 warranty would fall more into like heating, plumbing, structure, those kind of things. So warranty is a big one for pre-sales. With resales, we are dealing with a property that generally has been lived in. You're not going to be the first owner, right? It might have some wear and tear to it. So just keep in mind that there's not really any warranty with regard to resale properties. We can put certain warrants in that would essentially be applicable for possession. There's ways that like realtors can get creative and whatnot, but just very generally, pre-sales are going to come with a warranty, and resales are not going to come with a warranty and generally are going to have more wear and tear because they're used. So as you can see, there are a lot of differences between pre-sale and resale, whether that be like taxes, time periods or dates, deposits, financing, warranty, just the nature of it. Is it built? Is it not built? So it's definitely a topic for consideration when you get into the market. And there are definitely pros and cons to each of them, not just in terms of like them themselves, but also like specific to each individual person. So again, like pre-sale might be a really great option for someone that can't qualify now, like a student is a perfect example, but is going to qualify in the immediate future and wants to get into the market. Or someone that could potentially qualify now, but wants more time to save for their down payment so that they can help to lower their eventual mortgage payment. Or someone that is in a life situation where they just don't want to be paying their mortgage payments now, but they want to get into the market, right? Because again, the completion dates are generally further out and you don't need to start paying your mortgage till the completion. So that's definitely a part of pre-sale, or again, just anyone that wants a new property that's never been lived in and has this full warranty. Generally, they are the more expensive option of the two, so just keep that in mind. And you are going to be paying GST and in a lot of situations, property transfer tax, unless you qualify for that property transfer tax exemption as per the newly built home exemption. When we are dealing with resale properties, I would say that the pro here is that it's tangible. What you see is what you get. You know what you're buying. It's not like an idea of that you're going to have to like see and figure out. Maybe you didn't like this little thing, but you just didn't know about it because you hadn't seen it yet, it hadn't been built. Whereas with resale, what you see is what you get. So I think that's a big thing for resale. There's no GST. They're generally a little bit less expensive for that reason, but also because you're not buying something brand new. And they are definitely the safer option of the two in terms of financing, just because we're dealing with more immediate concrete dates and we generally know market conditions and our financial situation at the point in time when you get in the accepted offer versus pre-sales being much longer out. So there are a plethora of pros and cons for each of these that I could get into a lot more, but just some things to leave you guys to think about, and hopefully it helps make a decision when it comes to purchasing pre-sale versus resale. Thank you so much for watching this video on pre-sale versus resale. I hope that it was helpful for you in at least getting the gears going to start thinking about what direction you want to go. And if you do have further questions or you want an analysis on pre-sale versus resale in our market, again, my name is Mariko and I am a residential realtor with my team, Bridgewell Real Estate Group, and we're based out of the Greater Vancouver area. So we deal with all of the Lower Mainland. We deal with both pre-sale and resale extensively. So if you are looking to explore either option or both options, we're definitely your go-to team to be able to help you with that, whether it's buying, selling, or investing. Definitely feel free to reach out to us for all of your pre-sale and resale needs. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, this is the Bridgewell Group YouTube channel, and I talk about all things real estate in my market, but also provincially and federally, so make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Like this video, comment down below if you have any specific questions. We try to get to all of the comments that we possibly can, but we also love your suggestions, so leave a suggestion down below if you want videos like this in the future. If you want me to be talking about different topics, I'd love to hear what you have to say. And I hope that you found this video super helpful and have a fantastic day. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Have a good one.